Welcome back, everyone. Today we're taking a deep dive into something that's both familiar and full of surprises, cast iron cookware.
It really is amazing, how something as seemingly basic as a cast iron skillet can have such a deep, a long history.
I know. When I started researching for this, I was blown away by how far back it goes. We're not talking like, your grandma's skillet. We're talking like ancient history.
Oh, absolutely. And, a lot of people think of cast iron and they think like, Americana, but its roots go back centuries to ancient Asia.
Really?
Yeah, places like China, India, Japan, they were using cast iron way before it ever showed up in Europe.
Huh. So I'm picturing like those big woks you see in like stir-fry cooking. Is that what they were using back then?
Well, not exactly. You see, the earliest forms of cast iron cookware were really designed for cooking over an open fire, hearth cooking. So think more like sturdy pots, cauldrons, sometimes even with legs so they could stand right in the coals.
Oh, wow. So like those three-legged pots you sometimes see in like Renaissance fairs and stuff.
Exactly. But then, as cooking technology changed and stoves became more common in the 19th century, those three-legged pots, they weren't as practical. That's when you see the rise of the flat-bottom skillets, the Dutch ovens that we know and love today.
That makes sense. I mean, you can't really put a three-legged pot on a flat stovetop burner. So let's talk about cast iron in America. I feel like almost every family has at least one cast iron skillet somewhere in their kitchen, probably passed down from like a grandparent or something.
Oh yeah, for sure. Cast iron was it was really a staple in American kitchens for a good chunk of the 20th century. Durable, affordable, you could, hand these things down for generations.
It's like they're practically indestructible. So what were some of those like the big names back then, the brands that people still hunt for in antique stores and stuff?
Yeah. Well, Griswold and Wagner are the ones that really come to mind. They're definitely collector's items now. But there were others like the Black Lock Foundry, for example, that well, they didn't quite make it through the ups and downs of the cookware industry.
So what happened? I mean, cast iron was so popular, then it seems like it kind of fell out of favor for a while. Was that just because of like the rise of Teflon and all those nonstick options in the 60s and 70s?
That definitely played a part. Suddenly you had these pans where supposedly nothing would stick and they were super easy to clean. It seemed, well, easier than dealing with, the seasoning and the care that cast iron needs.
Right, right. But cast iron never really went away, did it?
No, no, not at all. People held onto those old pans, even if they weren't using them every day. And I think that's because, because cast iron is just so reliable. It lasts forever and it can take a beating.
And now it seems like cast iron's having like a major comeback.
Oh, absolutely. And it's not just nostalgia, Cast iron, it's incredibly versatile. You can sear in it, you can bake, fry, you can even make desserts in it. And, it goes from the stovetop to the oven without any issues.
Plus, there's something about the way food cooks in cast iron.
Yeah.
It's like it has I don't know, a depth of flavor you just don't get with other pans.
Exactly.
So speaking of types of cast iron, I know there's like the regular kind, the bare cast iron, and then there's also enameled cast iron.
Mm-hmm.
What's the difference? And like, when would you choose one over the other?
Yeah. Okay. So bare cast iron, that's the classic, no coating. That's what gives you that amazing sear, and you can build up a really nice nonstick surface with proper seasoning.
Right.
Enameled cast iron, on the other hand, it has that coating of vitreous enamel. It's like a glass-like finish, so you don't have to sear it in the traditional way, and it's a little easier to clean.
So they both have their pluses. But for someone who's like brand new to cast iron, what should they think about when they're, deciding between bare and enameled?
Well, it really depends on what kind of cooking they like to do. If they're into like searing meats at high heat and they enjoy that process of building up the seasoning, then bare cast iron might be the way to go. But if they're more into like slow cooking, braising, things like that, where you don't want anything to stick, then enameled cast iron is probably a good choice.
So you mentioned that the enamel, it prevents the iron from leaching into the food. Is that like a health thing, something people need to worry about?
It can be for some people. I mean, iron is an important nutrient, but if you have certain health conditions where you need to limit your iron intake, then enameled cast iron might be a better option. But for most people, the amount of iron that gets into your food from cooking in bare cast iron, it's really negligible.
Gotcha. So no matter which type of cast iron you go with, seasoning seems to be like the big thing everyone talks about. Can you break down what seasoning is and why it's so important?
Sure. So seasoning, it's basically creating a protective layer on bare cast iron. You're baking on these thin layers of oil, and they polymerize. They form this smooth, durable coating.
It's like creating your own nonstick surface.
Exactly. And a well-seasoned pan, the food will just slide right out, and it's super easy to clean. Now, it's worth noting that some enameled cast iron might benefit from like a light seasoning too, just to keep that surface nice and smooth.
Okay, so seasoning, check. But now I got to ask about this age-old debate. Can you wash cast iron with soap? Or is that like the worst thing you can do?
Yeah, it's a common myth that you can't use soap on cast iron. You don't want to, scrub it with steel wool or soak it for hours, but a gentle cleaning with some mild soap and water, it's totally fine. Just make sure you dry it really well, and then put a thin coat of oil on it to protect the seasoning.
That's good to know. I think a lot of people get intimidated by cast iron because they think it's like super high maintenance.
I know, but once you get the hang of it, it's really not that bad, and the results, they're worth it.
Okay, so speaking of great cast iron, let's talk about a company that's been making it in America for over a century. Lodge. Their story is pretty amazing.
It really is. They started back in 1896, and they've been through a lot, including a major fire in 1910 that destroyed their whole foundry.
No.
But they rebuilt, and they've kept going, and they've stayed in Tennessee all this time, providing jobs and supporting the local community.
That's impressive. So what else makes Lodge stand out?
Well, they were pioneers in automating the casting process, which helps make their cookware more affordable and accessible to more people. And they were the first to pre-season their cast iron at the foundry.
Oh yeah, that pre-seasoning is a game changer. It's like, you take it out of the box and you're ready to go.
Yeah.
But they haven't just stuck with like the classic cast iron skillets, have they?
Nope, they've branched out quite a bit. They make carbon steel cookware now, which is it's known for being lightweight and heating up quickly. They've also got their own line of enameled cast iron. And they even brought back the Blacklock name for their new line of what they call gourmet cast iron cookware. It's a little lighter than their traditional pieces.
So it seems like they're really like embracing all the different sides of cast iron, from the traditional to the more modern. Is there anything else about Lodge that you find like particularly interesting?
Well, I think it's great that they're so committed to preserving the history of cast iron. They actually worked to create a museum dedicated to cast iron cookware.
Really?
Yeah, it showcases the evolution of cast iron and its impact on American cooking.
Yeah. Oh, wow. That's awesome. So it sounds like Lodge is really all about like honoring the past, but also, moving forward with cast iron and making it relevant for today's cooks.
And speaking of today's cooks, I have one last question before we wrap up this part of our deep dive.
I'm kind of curious, with all this renewed interest in like wood-fired cooking and everyone appreciating how well cast iron holds heat. Do you think we might see people going back to like hearth-style cooking?
Yeah.
Maybe even using, modern cast iron designs.
That's a really cool idea. It'd be like combining the best of the old and the new, right?
Cooking over fire, but with all the benefits of modern cast iron.
Right. Imagine like a sleek, modern-looking cast iron pot designed specifically for wood-fired cooking. It could totally change the way we think about cooking outdoors.
Yeah. I can totally picture like a beautiful cast iron Dutch oven hanging over a crackling fire, filled with a hearty stew or maybe some amazing bread.
And we can't forget about the flavor. Cast iron it adds this depth of flavor to food that you can't get with those modern nonstick pans.
That's so true. There's something almost like magical about the way cast iron cooks food. It's like each dish has this little bit of history and fire in it.
I know, right? And I think that's a big part of why people are so drawn to cast iron these days. They're looking for that connection to older ways of cooking, to those authentic flavors. It's like a reminder that sometimes the old ways, they really are the best ways, especially when it comes to cooking.
So it feels like we've really explored a lot about cast iron in this deep dive. We've talked about its ancient history, how it's evolved, with cooking technology, its rise and fall, and then this huge comeback it's making. We've talked about bare versus enamel, the whole seasoning thing, and of course the amazing story of Lodge.
And we've only just scratched the surface. There's still so much to learn about cast iron, like the science behind how it holds heat so well, all the different things you can cook in it, and who knows, maybe even Maybe even a future where hearth cooking makes a big comeback.
Yeah, it's a really fascinating world. I'm glad we had the chance to explore it together today.
Me too. It's been really fun.
And for our listeners who want to keep learning about cast iron, make sure you check out the show notes. We've got links to some great resources, tips on caring for your cast iron, some delicious recipes, and even a virtual tour of the Lodge Museum of Cast Iron.
You might even get inspired to design your own wood-fired cast iron cooking setup.
Right. Let your culinary imagination run wild. Until next time, everyone, happy cooking.
And happy deep diving.
Wow, we've really gone from ancient cooking fires to modern kitchens, huh? We've learned about how to season cast iron, and we've even talked about, what the future of cast iron could look like, maybe with more people cooking over fire again.
Yeah, it's pretty cool to think about. And you know what? It's amazing how something as simple as cast iron can lead to such an interesting conversation.
It really is. So for everyone listening, if you're feeling inspired and you're ready to get cooking with cast iron, don't forget to check out our show notes. We've got tons of great links there, tips on caring for cast iron, some really delicious recipes, and even a link to a virtual tour of the Lodge Museum of Cast Iron.
Oh, and if you're feeling extra adventurous and you want to try, building your own wood-fired cooking setup, we've got some resources for that too.
So there you have it. Everything you need to know to become a cast iron master. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. Until next time, happy cooking.
And happy deep diving.